questions you've made, some more details. But let me, broadly speaking, say we run this economy with the main objective of making sure that the business sector has an adequate environment to operate. Of all the indicators that we've had in the past few years, I guess the one that reflects that emphasis is the Doing Business report, where we now rank #1 in Latin America, which means we run this economy in a way that we try to make an effort, deliberate effort, to make sure that the business sector has incentive and is encouraged to invest. So that's first. How do we do that? We are the opposite of fiscal populism. We avoid large deficits, large public debt. We want to keep an economy with very moderate fiscal deficit, very responsible fiscal policies, very tight discipline. How do we do that? We have a fiscal rule that is a straitjacket that forces us to have a low deficit and to reduce that deficit year after year. And we follow very strictly that rule, that fiscal rule. That means that whenever it's necessary, because we have a loss in revenues like we're having now with the declining oil prices, we have to cut the budget. So what you're going to expect, or you can expect from tomorrow's deliberations within the cabinet, is a reduction in the budget, naturally, because it is really what's necessary to comply with our fiscal rule. But we think that sends the right signal to markets. It sends the signal of confidence, and it sends a signal of credibility in our macroeconomic framework. Of course, it has costs in terms of the adjustment, in terms of the programs that we have to downsize, etc., etc. But we think the benefits outweigh the costs associated with that. There is a conversation here in Colombia about the need of a structural tax reform. We need to change the structure of our taxes because they rely too heavily on corporate income taxation. And we need to rebalance that and make sure that we have more taxation from other sources, including personal income taxation. But we also think it's important to make sure that we reduce tax evasion. Tax evasion is pervasive, and it's a problem associated with informality, and that's why we need to tackle the issue of informality to make sure that we collect more taxes without raising the tax rate. And that's essentially our view. We need to reduce tax evasion. We have an independent panel looking at these issues, providing us with recommendations that we will be receiving towards the end of the year, in the spirit of proposing a structural tax reform next year. We're dealing with a shock to our export prices, mainly coming from oil, but also in some way from the coal sector. That shock negatively affects our exports, export revenues, and definitely it plays a contractionary role in our economy. It reduces our economic growth. So last year we grew 4.6%. This year we expect to grow about 3.6%. So we're going to lose at least 1 percentage point of economic growth this year relative to last year. How are we planning to offset that in the medium term? A major infrastructure program called the 4G. The Public Credit Director can explain to you a bit more about the details of that, but it's essentially an initiative that is financed by the private sector, where the private sector will invest in these projects and will recover that investment in the future through the collection of tolls, and also the private sector will receive some contributions from the budget, but in the future, once the projects are operational. Another initiative which we just just launched was, we call it PEEPing. It's a program to incentivize productivity and employment. And we're providing subsidies in the housing sector. Just to mention one of the elements that is more important, we're providing incentives in the housing sector, so we stimulate the demand for housing. And that's another way in which we will stimulate our economy. And finally, I would say that we've done in the past 4 years a number of investments that will provide a very important dividend into the future, because they help our economy in widening our middle class. The number of people that was lifted out of poverty was not insignificant, about 4.5 million people. And also the investments you mentioned in telecom. We have now broadband connection in every municipality. We have 1,100 municipalities in Colombia, and they are entirely connected with broadband connections. Many of them with fiber optics, in a few cases with satellite communications, in those cases where it's difficult to access through cable. So in a way, this is the landscape. We're having a negative shock, but we are offsetting the shock with these investments in infrastructure with the private sector in a program that we have been developing for the last 5 years. So I'm going to leave you with the public credit director. I apologize, but as I said, I have two now not just one, now two ministers outside waiting for these difficult decisions regarding the budget.